Here on the island of Barbados, where the rhythm of life is set to the pace of a cricket ball, a legend quietly etched his name into the annals of the sport. A man who transcended the role of a coach, becoming a mentor and a father figure to generations of aspiring cricketers. Keith Boyce, a name synonymous with cricket excellence, was more than just a cricket coach. He was a beacon of inspiration, a guiding light who shaped not only the skills, but also the character of countless youngsters. Join us now as we commence this series on the work and legacy of this beloved Barbadian, celebrated not only for his contribution to the game, but also for his unwavering dedication to nurturing young talent. Through the eyes of those whose lives he touched, we'll explore the profound impact of Keith Boyce, who transcended boundaries to leave an indelible mark on the world of cricket. Hello and welcome to Keith Boyce, his work and legacy. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Thanks for joining us. This episode takes a look at the positive influence he has had on the lives of many. We begin with Donovan Lopez.
First met him about 1986, 87. I was in first form at Cordial Park School. First time I saw him, I didn't know who he was. Basically, we were at cricket practice, and this gentleman just used to come and watch the practice sessions and see what was going on. But then later on, I found out that he used to play with us in the second 11. I was playing on the 15 at the time. They drafted me into the second 11. I guess that was really my first real serious encounter with Coach.
When I first heard about him, I understand he was my neighbor because I live in Gaze and he lived in Castle, and I didn't really know much about cricket. I used to watch the highlights and stuff of the West Indies back in the days, and that was it for me. I was more into football. And then, I was told by Mr. James Vaughan, he was the president of Boyce Sports Club, that my neighbor is a West Indian. And, I was kind of happy and wanted to meet him. And he introduced me to him. I had just finished school, and there was on the 19 team about to get picked for Barbados. And they found a way to got me to trials, and both of them, got me there, and they made the team. So I was very, happy about that.
I first met him when I was about 13 years old. I was playing under 15 cricket, and that game would have been at the St. Lucie Secondary School, Darrell Jordan now as it's called. And I was introduced to him, or he was brought to see me play cricket or bat by Jeff Brooms. And I remember I was a bit nervous that evening. I batted the first day, did well, so he was brought the second day to see me bat. And on that particular evening, I walked out to bat. And if anyone knows the St. Lucie Secondary School and the pavilion, the length or the distance between the pavilion and the actual pitch, there's a fair walk. So you don't really want to go over there and not score any runs. But that evening, I was given out the first ball after he came to watch me bat.
I first heard about Keith Boyce when I actually got into cricket. Being from Hoardishill, where I've produced a lot of West Indian cricketers, and reading up on the history of West Indies cricket. Keith Boyce's name always stood out to me because he was an electric cricketer. He was very excited. As we know, he's a St. Peter homegrown talent. And St. Peter would have produced the likes of Pedro Collins, Corey Collimer, Fidel Edwards. And my first real interaction with Mr. Boyce would have been for the combined schools. I can recall when first representing Barbados in 1996 in Trinidad. This would have been on the 15 tournament in Argyle on the 15 tournament. And due to my consistent performances, I was then invited to Combined Schools North. So the North team used to practice at CP, Eddersley.
Well, I first remember Mr. Boyce. I was actually still in under 15 cricket. combined schools north, they used to practice over at the LSD Secondary School. So when I was growing up, playing on the LSD pasture, practicing for LSD, I would have seen him come down and have practice sessions with the older boys, the combined school boys. Little did I know I would have ended up there quite soon. So I would have represented Barbados in under 15, and straight out of under 15, I would have went into the combined schools team. And I lived in St. Michael, that's Black Rock. So I used to walk to school and walk back home. So I wasn't fortunate to be driven around, but I made the best of it in terms of asking him any questions after cricket, and he was always, open to discussing with the younger guys. I remember him, especially with guys like Shirley Clark and Adrian Murphy, and those guys practicing Corey Yale and those guys over at LSE. And he would always crack a joke, some type of joke Mr. Boyce always had to say. And
it's probably in the early 90s. I was at school, at law school. I was playing under 15 cricket, and you get to hear about some of the greats, the past greats. And played under 15. I played with Floyd Reefer and Brian Johnson. Those were two of the outstanding names at the time. And these guys were playing for combined schools. So it was, of course, my dream at some point to play with these guys and see where their career led them. And then I got the opportunity to play for the combined schools. I think it was around 16 or 17. So that would have been the early 90s. And to be honest, I didn't know a lot about Keith Boyce, who he was. He was an old guy, At the time, he was then the coach at the time.
I probably would have met him in the late 80s. At that time, I would have been playing second division cricket for Alexandra, so I would say give and take, probably 1989 or so. I probably would have met him. He was fully attached then with Coach Parry School, and we were playing in a game, Alexandra versus Coach Parry, and he was playing like as the master. So this old guy that time, his knees and things were gone, and obviously he couldn't bowl fast and stuff like this, and he was bowling a little bit of a leg spin and stuff.
I grew up with Keith being a very close friend of my father. It was interesting to watch him and especially how he and my father interacted. It was only after a while that I found out that the respect that he seemed to have for my father was as a result of my father being a captain of a team that Keith was a member of back in 1961 when they traveled to Jamaica as Barbados schoolboys under the management of Everton, now Sir Everton Weeks. And one of the jokes that my father gives me about that tour is they went on tour. Keith was always this big personality, even though he was, as we know him, a very, very slim man. He had indicated to everyone that he had never dropped a catch in his life. So my father indicated to me that they had played a particular game in Montego Bay. And Keith was feeling, I believe, at short mid-wicket. And one of the easiest catches that anyone could ever see went to him. And the only thing it touched was his shirt. It did not touch his hands. It ran straight down his shirt. And as my father put it, like how porridge would run down a child's vest, very, very slowly. And apparently Sir Everton did not let him forget it for the rest of the tour, and apparently for a few years, quite a few years after that. But if you know the personality, that sort of story would not surprise you.
1989, he would have came back to Coach Parry to offer his services to the cricket. I was playing second divisions then, and that's when the rapport started. Coach just said to me, "Young Penny, I think I know you. I know your family. You're from the graveyard in St. Lucie, and I know all the Paynes in the graveyard." I was like, "Really?" It's like, yeah, I do, I know where you live. You live near to North Corbin. I was like, yeah, that's my neighbor. It's like, and as a matter of fact, I'll take you home this evening. This was at a practice session. And true to his word, he took me home and he showed me all the people in the neighborhood that he knew. And as I said, it started all there. He said, you got a lot of ability and I'm going to show you some things, man. He started to play second division on our team. And that's when my cricket, I can say, really took off.
I first heard about him obviously playing with my peers. And some of them I would have went to England with the Barbados on the 16 team in 1991. So from there we kept in touch. And the guys from the north who had gone on to play first division for the combined schools north, I would have heard about Coach Keith Boyce. But it was actually in vacation. There was a touring team from the UK, and himself and Jeff Brooms, the then manager, they invited me to come and play this game, which, you know, called to play a game, ready to go at that age, happy just to play cricket every day. And from that, for me, that day, looking back on it, I guess it was pretty much a trial game because I had a chance to bat 3 or 4 that day. And I bowled all my overs. I think I got 3 wickets that day and I scored 30 odd. Then they asked me to come to the North practice on the Thursday. And I was like, North practice, but foundation school, I'm in the South. That time I was not playing for the Combined School South. They told me, come and have practice. And I went to practice that Thursday. And I made my debut for the North that Saturday against, it was St. Catherine.
I was actually at Combined Schools North playing cricket before coach came on board fully. So I would have met him halfway in the season. I was not relatively known in cricket circles as I came from Queen's College. At the time, we were in the Combined School South, but the school moved to Husband's area. So then we were transferred to the North. So I hardly actually knew most of the guys that I played with at the time. But what happened is that we didn't have too much of a cricket structure at the school at that time. It was not known as a cricketing school. So I wanted to, expand my horizons. So I decided to take the venture up to Coaching Prairie to combined school practices on evening.
I was a prodigy at a young age, and I was at Combermere, and it was fortunate that Combermere would have been moved to the northern zone. So we had the opportunity to be with the combined schools north. Previously, it would have been with the south. So the guys, older guys such as Marlon Graham and those guys would go down to practice on afternoons, and sometimes my dad would transport everyone down to Coaching Prairie for practice. So one afternoon I decided I'll go along, just wanted to see what it was going to be like. Fortunately for me, I would have had my clothing and stuff, some of my cricket equipment. And when I got there, obviously it was shy, timid, seeing the big guys out there practicing and what's not. And I was introduced to coach.
I first met Keith Boyce way back in 1995. I was a student at Grant Yano's Memorial School then. And we came into contact because I started playing cricket for the combined schools.
I had a lot of good memories with him. I remember the practice sessions used to be at the Alexandra School. So I'm at Lodge in St. John, Alexandra, and St. Peter. So the difficulty was, of course, how do I get from Lodge to St. Peter after school in time to actually get in some real practice. So at some points I used to take the bus and got there late and so on. Then he found out about it, and then he organized that we would come to town, get a ride with him, because he used to work at the office, I think he was in charge of the instant money game. We used to go to the office there next to, I think it was Chicken Barn right there on Bay Street, and then he used to take us down. How many of you? It could have been quite a few of us actually.
And I first had challenges with getting to cricket sessions, because traveling, the sessions were at Coaching Prairie, and obviously me from Grant Yano's, that's another side of the spectrum. And this man would wait for us religiously every single time we had practice. and he would take us down to practice. That was one of my fondest memories because he was so kind and so giving.
Every Thursday, we used to go to his office at the lottery office, and he just used to sit down and talk to us about cricket. And for some reason, that used to be the highlight of our day. We couldn't wait to leave school just so we could hear the coach talk about cricket. He used to talk about his exploits on the field. He used to talk about all the different experiences he had traveling over the world. He used to talk about his daughters. He loved his daughters so much. Anything you could possibly think of, Coach used to talk about. And we just used to sit down and listen and interact with Coach.
We used to spend tremendous time at Coach's office. I mean, come on, that's our father. That's like a father. I mean, we cannot go a day without seeing him. We cannot go a day without actually hearing him.
I remember days too, he would have to pick up his daughter. So Therese would, you know, he would pick her up and then he would go down.
Even to get picked up from school, I had to say, well, Dad, you're coming for me? Oh, I have to pick up this person, that person. And he was always there for them. I was always part of it, yes. But he knew the struggles that a lot of them encountered. And he tried his best to assist as possible. Many evenings I would come from school and go to his office, and persons would be there sitting, just talking to him all evening. Some evenings, every evening, someone would be there. Or he would tell me, so I have to go to stop by this house or whatever. But his phone would be ringing all the time. If they had a chance, they'll be at his house.
He had limes at his house. He would invite us down. We would go down. We would partake in some drinks, but not alcoholic beverages, obviously, because of the age limit. We would have good interactions with Coach Boyce.
But most of them came to the office because it was Central's in town, and most of them would meet there on evenings and talk to him. He made sure they got home. It could be 10 boys. He's putting them in that Subaru, and everybody's moving.
And Coach would drive us to practice. Sometimes along the way, we would still have one or two other pickups to do as well. I remember specifically, Brian Hurley was one of the last pickups on the road, and he was in Zion Hill. And we all used to cramp ourselves in the back seat, two in the front, you know, and everyone was happy going to practice every time like that.
Coach was a guy who take me to cricket, take me back home, because, you know, obviously at the time my mum can't afford to give you the bus fare to get to cricket, to back home. There were times that we used to have like 7, 8 guys in the car. I mean, if that was happening now, he would be probably reported, you know, and it used to be so much fun.
But Coach made sure that he transported us wherever we had to go, and it was never ever a problem. He was always willing to do it. He was so passionate about the game. He was so passionate of seeing us succeed that he just, to him it was nothing.
Better believe it. Even my girlfriends at school, if I didn't go to school, they would come down to his office and he would drop them home. Yes, my good friend Natasha from law school, she would do that. So he was very involved, especially with youth. He loved them. He loved to talk to them.
And I remember those rides that were, you know, memorable. We had, you know, he would talk about his cricketing days, and we were, you know, get to know a bit more about him.
Coach would work in town. I'd be hustling coming from community college to get by Coach's office to get a drop down the road. And Coach car packed down with guys with cricket gear, and from there he would take care of us.
They even had some days that one or the other would not have turned up at the office, say that we missed school or something like that. Coach would still make it his point to drive to the houses of the individual to find out why they didn't go to school first, and then say, well, if it was not that they were sick or anything like that, would drag us to practice.
There was one day I just did not feel like going to practice, and I was by my neighbor relaxing, and the phone rang, my mother calling. Coach is here. I was like, Coach here? But I refused to answer the phone. Come down to get, Coach, what happened, Matthew? You're not practicing today? Go and get your gear. and I'm grumbling to myself. Jeez, man, what?
I was representing Boscobel in the intermediate game, and we playing against CP, and I was the back, and I went watching netball, and eventually my team got balled out. I think they got balled out for 90 something. We were chasing 100 and probably 10 run, and they didn't bat, and I was so embarrassed. And I used to dodge Mr. Boyce because he used to come in. He's coming looking for me. You know, I know he's gonna be on me. And by the time I see his car coming, I threw the back door of my house. Down the galley, down the sitting, they shouting for me, and they just keeping quiet. But then eventually he caught up with me, and you know we talked it out, and you know he explained to me rights and wrongs stuff. Because I was young, giddy-headed, and you know I took in that knowledge and you know become a different person.
And to me, for someone that played at the level he played at, to be checking in on everybody, and the way he used to check in on everybody was phenomenal. I don't think there were any other coaches that would have done those sort of things.
Every Saturday morning, when Coach left the North, Coach would pick up Donovan Lopez and Corey Collymore and drop them by my house in Husbands. Shirley Clark would come up, and from as early as 7 o'clock, we would be playing cricket. we would play cricket before we go to cricket. And that also helped to build a bond, helped to build team unity, because you had one set of guys who you would, on evenings when he's coming down, Ryan and Alan and those guys, he would pick them up, bring them down. So there was that communication among that group. And then, as I said, on mornings, the other group coming up from the North, there was that tight bond. And I was fortunate to have both the morning and the evening crowd, if you want to put it that way. And that, for me, I got to see firsthand how he related to everybody. There were some guys that he can talk to them in a sterner manner without being angry. And then there were some guys, or I should say some occasions, where he would come and put his hand around your shoulder and say, don't worry about it. These things happen. You got to get up, dust off yourself, and go again.
Very loving individual. If he was into you, he would give you his time. He would literally, I believe, give you the shirt off his back, if that is what was necessary. As I got a little older, he started to give me some advice in my cricket. He was actually he became a youth selector. I was a youth selector around the time when I was in the under-19 program. And he then became a senior selector. And I was hopeful that he would have smiled on me the same way that he had done when I was at the youth level. Unfortunately, it's around that same time that we had received the call that he had unfortunately passed.
He was warm, he was friendly, but he was firm. Very, very, very firm.
Yes. And that was my first interaction with Keith Boyce. I don't want to say he lambasted me that day, but he had a stern talking to me because he felt that I threw away my wicket a little too easy. And I guess that was the starting point, because from there, the relationship just grew. He would come and give me my honest opinion, and I felt, I could tell him, but this is how I seen it. We might have had a difference in opinion, but we would then agree to move forward. And one of the things was I realized, at that point in time, you don't know some of these things. You learn some of these things as you go on in life. But what stood out was the fact that he was such a great motivator, a great communicator and motivator for especially guys in my age group who, going up against big men who have done all of this before, he gave us a lot of confidence to go out there, not to back down from anybody.
he knew how to get the best out of you as a coach, to be honest. And I could remember playing a match against Cable and Wireless. It was BT then, and it had these stars, Courtney Brown and the Maxwells and these boys, West Indies players. And I was a little toddler then, and I was sitting there waiting for my turn to bat, and I had my head in my hands, and coach came up, put his hand on my shoulder and asked what I was studying about. I said I was planning my innings. And I remember these exact words. He said, don't plan no innings, see ball, hit ball. And from then, you know, it just took off from there.
He really pushed you. He pushed you. He used to get involved in he was very passionate about cricket and about our development because he could see further than we could see. You know, at that time we were having fun, we were playing just, you know, it was just cricket. But he saw, you know, he saw something more.
He had a great eye for talent, and when he sees something, and he knows it, trust me. When he sees something, he knows it, and he wants action at the point of time.
He would even, you know, he was kind of a touchy-feely guy too, so he would, you know, he would sessions, he would grab your pad and position your body and, you know, kind of help you to get in the right positions and so on.
He was the sort of guy that he didn't even used to do a lot of technical in terms of changes in your style of playing of the game. He mostly motivated and mostly just instilled confidence. And it was very heartwarming coming from someone who played at a very high level. You know, at that time, you never had much interaction with someone who played cricket at that level, and to just have him there next to you and giving you that confidence, it meant a lot.
But I think one of the times that really stood out to me was we had a game, it was a youth cricket game, it was Barbados against Trinidad at the Oval. And, you know, I felt the pressure because he really wanted me to I think it was a West Indies youth team to be picked. And he really wanted me to be on the team. So the pressure was, I think it was Ram Narain. He was the leg spinner, you know, Ram Narain came out and he came on, I think, first change, and it was batting, and he tossed one, and I stroked it onto the wall at Kingston stand and for 4, you know, and I was feeling good, and I could hear him in the background. I could hear his voice, and he was really looking forward for a big score, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It was I nicked one then to slip and got out, and you know, he didn't let up on me that evening. He went on, and you know, he's telling me I had 100 put down, and he went on, and I didn't make the team, but you know, that didn't stop him from encouraging.
Those testimonies are a reminder that in the world of cricket, true heroes are not just those who score centuries or take wickets. They are the ones who inspire, who guide, and shape the future of the game and of the young lives they touch. The late Keith Boyce touched the lives of many. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Thanks for your time.